welcome that is. Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to the Clackamas County Board of Commissioners business meeting this October 30th, the day before Halloween 2014. I'll ask Mr. Krupp to take our roll call.
Well, good morning, Mr. Chair and Commissioners. We are joined with our County Counsel, Stephen Madcore, and then to my left is Mary Rathke, Clerk to the Board. So I'll start the roll. Commissioner Smith. Here. And then on the phone, Commissioner Schrader.
Here.
Commissioner Savas.
Here.
Chair Ludlow.
Here. Will you all please rise and join me in the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Well, the first thing on the agenda is a presentation, Mr. Krupp.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chair. I'm going to ask Mr. Michael Reed, our Interim Director of Water Environment Services, to step forward and to recognize Michael Trent, an employee of West. So come on up.
Michael, I'm glad to see you've adopted my hairstyle. I appreciate that. Well done.
You've been a good role model for me.
No, thanks a bunch. Yeah.
Well, Chair Ludlow, members of the commission, I'm very pleased to be here today to introduce Michael Trent. Michael Trent is our operations supervisor at the Tri-City plant. I know you toured that facility recently and got to see what a wonderful and high-tech facility that is, and Michael's in charge of all the operations there and one of our very best employees. He's being recognized for receiving the Hatfield Award. I'm going to give you a bit of background on that award. I'm in a unique experience as I was the president of the Water Environment Federation from 2005 to 2006. They're the sponsor of this award. The Water Environment Federation is an international organization with 76 member associations from all over the world, has about 40,000 direct members, about a total of 100,000 members who work or participate in those member associations. There are a number of awards that they give, but one of the highest awards they give is this Hatfield Award. And it's an award that is really about recognizing the expertise and quality of the folks who operate and maintain the wastewater and water quality treatment systems in this country. A little background on the award, it's presented to operators of wastewater treatment plants for outstanding performance and professionalism. The award was established in honor of Dr. William D. Hatfield, superintendent of the Decatur, Illinois Sanitary District, who was president of the Central States Sewage Works Association in 1944 through 45, and served as the president of the Water Environment Federation 1958 through 59. The award consists of a plaque and recognition, and it's given through the local member association of the Water Environment Federation, which is the Pacific Northwest Clean Water Association, representing Oregon, Washington, and Idaho. So of all those folks in those three states, our own Michael Trent got the Hatfield Award this year, and it's something we're all very proud of. With that, I think Michael has a few words to share.
Thank you for inviting me here today to speak with you. I'd like to, first of all, acknowledge my friends and colleagues at Water Environment Services for the support they have given me through the years in pursuing my career. And I would also like to thank the Clackamas County Board of Commissioners, past and present, and the administrators, past and present, that have also supported WES in its mission to deliver treatment services to the citizens of the region. And that also includes programs like stream restoration and public outreach, which have been very beneficial for us. This is a profession that I dearly love, and I thank you for giving me the opportunity to pursue it in the best possible form that has been given me the opportunities. It's been a great honor to work for Clackamas County, and I appreciate all you've done for me. Thank you.
Thank you, Michael. Congratulations. Why don't we get a photo op with Michael? So, commissioners.
That looks pretty good. Just one more.
I was mentioning to Michael, my bet is that he does not wear that suit at work. At least I didn't recognize any peculiar smell, but anyway, thank you, Michael, and congratulations. Commissioner Savas.
Yeah, I just want to recognize Michael as well. We've been maybe coincidentally in a similar path, but in a different field, and that is, really operating and maintaining the treatment plants, all about making dirty water clean and protecting our environment, the river, and meeting regulations and federal and state regulations. And so in my career, it's been in the air quality. So we've been on a similar path, but that's really meeting the requirements we have. When we talk about climate smart a little bit later today, I'll share some of my air quality background. But I want to, again, acknowledge you for your performance and helping keep it and vitalizing. I heard the stories of what was like years ago before there was any wastewater or sewer service, period. And it was not a good place in Clackamas County. It had an odor, it stunk, our rivers were not a place where you wanted to be. And today, it's a different place, so congratulations.
And now it's time for a special presentation from our county clerk, Sherry Hall, in regards to an update on the November 4th election.
Thank you.
Let's go, girl.
Good morning, Commissioners. Thank you for allowing this breaking news on the current election. First of all, the returns as of yesterday afternoon is 29.5%. And that means that 67,771 ballots out of a total of 229,739 that were mailed out. And this is about 10% or more or less than we would be normally in this kind of an election, which is kind of sad. People need to get their ballots in. And to help people with extra things that happen just with their ballots or with their election status, our office will be open on Saturday from 10 to 3. Our phones will not be open, but on our phone message, it does tell people that our office is open so they can come in. But we're not answering phones because that takes up way too much time and we won't have everybody there that day. And my suggestion is as of today, no more mailing in of ballots because they need to be in our office by 8 o'clock election night. And something could happen with the mail. The Secretary of State's office actually has something in the newspaper saying not to mail them past Friday. But our advice was always not to do it after the Thursday before the election day. And we will post first returns about 8:05 on election night, and that should be all of the ballots that have come into our office by Monday at 5. So anything after 8 o'clock will just be the ballots that are returned on election day itself. So first returns at about 8:05, and then there will be a time on the website saying when the next returns will be posted, and it will be maybe 2 to 3 hours. It just depends on the volume of ballots that are coming in. So it's all dependent on volume. And like I said, we only have 29.5. This kind of an election in the past has always been about 62% turnout. Presidential is about 85%. So it's quite different. But I just want to encourage the voters to get their ballots in. It's important to vote. I also presented you with a report of the number of ballots per state representative district and congressional district because I had the question about which party has returned the most. And it does show Democrats have returned more than Republicans, partly because we have a larger Democratic majority than Republican in this county. That might be helpful. Is there any questions?
No, it's disappointing.
It is very disappointing. We were only at about 15% 2 days ago.
Wow.
So it's picking up. What do you suggest?
Well, I think people are holding on to their ballots, personally. I think
Because they
there's
haven't
some-
made decisions on everything, possibly.
I think the governor's race is very, people are waiting to see if some more stuff's going to come out. It's my opinion, because it's probably the most controversial thing right now. So I think they're just kind of waiting to see what's going to happen. And so I think it'll tick up. I don't know if it's going to be at 68%. I can't predict that.
62, yeah, that would be
62.
nice.
Well, thank you, Sherry. I think a lot of people will be glued to their computers at that 8:05 mark next Tuesday, for sure.
That's what they'll be doing. I just also want to make a thank you to Don Krupp, our administrator, because we needed some extra help with our mailing on a Friday, and Don saw to it that we had staff here to do that, and that was very helpful. Thank you.
Thank you, Sherry.
The Dropbox locations?
Did you put it
Yeah,
up?
they're up. If on the web is, under the elections office is a lot of information, and there's a list of the Dropbox locations where people can deliver their ballots.
Yeah, just for those that were watching, it's probably important to note that when you said don't mail, you talking about the U.S. mail service, and the white, I believe they're still white, the ballot drop boxes that are
Correct.
located here are white, and that's the place to drop them between now and
And election day.
yeah, the election hours, those white boxes, and they're listed there, and I do know that in my community, it's at the Oak Lodge Library, there's one there, and of course, right in front of your office is the
Right,
most.
we have a big one in front of our office, and they're in all of the outer lying locations too, in Sandy and Estacada. They're all around the county.
Yep, I hope there's a larger turnout, especially with our the millennials and the younger folks that, their future's really kind of at stake on a lot of issues, and we encourage the young people to get involved in voting, period.
Right, and there were a lot of registration drives going on, and our number of registered voters increased around 10,000 from May to this election. But it's a two-step process. You get registered, and then you turn your ballot in. So we hope
Commissioner
those
Smith?
come in.
Who is bringing in the lock boxes?
We hire people to pick up at Dropbox sites, and they go out and pick them up through the season of elections. It's not every day with every single one of them, but on election day it will be, and then the last box is picked up right at 8 o'clock.
And those sites are not monitored. Are they monitored on election day?
They are not. We do have observers out there. We haven't ever really needed to monitor them. Do you suggest that we do that?
Well, yeah.
We use
I don't know if it's in the budget, but
yeah, we do the time the same. So the cell phone time, I think, is the same as atomic clock time, so they're all closed at the same time. But we have Dropbox people in pairs that go out and pick them up.
good.
Okay,
Thank you, Sherry.
thank you.
At this time, I'll call forward Rick Cook, representative of the Stafford Hamlet, for a report on their recent election. Barry?
Good morning, and thank
Mary.
you for letting me give you our update on our advisory vote that we had. We were working real hard on a community vision plan and had all the stakeholders involved, and it was going on extremely well. And then we were told that we needed to have our answers and wishes to the county by the end of October so that we could let you go ahead and put the ask forward to the state and get your ducks in a row as we go through. So in a very short period of time, we got an amazing amount of work done with a great group of people. People in the Stafford Hamlet have done miraculous things in the past. If you look at the amount of people that showed up and voted was pretty amazing in itself. And not only the people in the Stafford Hamlet, but the people at the county have been absolutely marvelous working with us. Barbara and Gary and the PGA and Dan Chandler have been, anytime we had a question or a concern, we went to them and they followed through and got that. Some people in the Stafford Hamlet that actually were kind of the go-getters that pulled this thing off was Lynn Wyckoff, Ann Coulter, Carol Yamada, Sally Quimby, and I'm sure I'm forgetting somebody there, but they're the ones that really did the footwork and got close to 50% of our turnout. So if Sherry's still here, I have some people that you might want to talk to.
Yeah, exactly.
Anyway, you have two different packets. One, the first one just talks about the advisory, and as we were listening to comments in previous meetings, it says you just want the facts, so that's why you got the little dragnet picture on there. It's just the facts, man, and we're going to run through it, and I'll get through this as quick as we can. So the first one is just the postcard that went out. We had two different postcards that we sent, and it was spendy, but it worked. I think the people that the 712 that were on our list from the county, the first one came back, and I think there was 12 that had something wrong with the addresses or whatever it was. So the second mailing out was 700, and we'll go through a few more of these things. The next picture is, or next page is the newspaper ad that went into the Westland Tidings and Lake Oswego Review 2 different times to advertise. If you turn the page over here, it's basically a breakdown of the cost involving this particular vote. And I know that in the past we've had some discussions about how do you get people involved, how do you get people out to votes and those things. And I think as you go through here, the biggest thing for us was the mailing. You know, it's going to take a big chunk to get those mailings out, but then it comes down to, is it worth it or not? And we think, of course, that it is. So our whole vote in this 2 months of advertising, doing signs, posting them all over the hamlet, and all those things when it's all said and done, it's probably going to be just over $2,000. And I think it was money well spent. Once again, that was fundraised money, not county money, so it doesn't come out of our allotment from the county that we go through there. Next is 2 in favor of undesignated, in favor of urban reserves, and that's pretty self-explanatory. And then your second packet, that was one that we had at our town halls and our meetings. This one on the first page on the second packet, which somehow got left out, is what we used on, this would have been a voter pamphlet type thing, so it's kind of condensed. The other things where people come in and say, okay, what's the gist here? How do I go on? That's what that first page of that one was. So sorry that wasn't in the proper batting order there. The next thing is a picture of, or the handout of our ballot. I know there was some talk that, and if you look at the last page of your second handout, that is the actual one, once again, that there was some corrections made at the end, and actually your request to have somewhat of a disclaimer that it wasn't something that the county was putting forward, but the Stafford Hamlet was putting forward. When we ran it, it got chopped off at the bottom. So anyway, the asterisk got removed from the advisory vote, and I think that is, if you look at this and if you took it piece by piece, that it's fairly simple, but we tried to get it on one page, tried to get as much information to you as we possibly could, because that's what, to us, that's what this was about. How much information can we get to you? And I think that as we go through and you turn the page, you'll see that we had also a supplementary ballot for the people that came to the town halls and said, we can't make it on those dates. What do we do? Well, we don't have mail-in ballots. So we gave them a supplementary ballot that they could take and send to us that would not be counted in the vote. That would be used as, here's more information to get to you, and why we want to do this is to get as much information to the county as possible. So we have those, and there weren't a lot of those, but we still gave that opportunity for those people to do that. The next sheet is basically kind of what Sherry was talking about this morning, was that if you look at the last election, that it was basically a 39 or 30% turnout. And I think if you look at what we did, we sent out 700 cards, and we had over 388 people show up to vote. So I think that the things that we had done, spending the money, getting the people out, and doing a good job of marketing this process, I think has been a great thing. So if you look at the total numbers, the largest vote we ever had was for our visions and value statement, was for 485. The formation of the hamlet, the original one was 360. The largest election we ever had was 400, and that was after a substantial issue that came up in the hamlet of basically a tree issue, and so people came out and voted on that. So we feel pretty good that we actually had 374 ballots that were actually turned in. If you turn the page, and that kind of gives you the breakdown where 388 people showed up and took ballots, but some decided that, well, this isn't what I want to do or I don't understand, and we had people there to help explain that. So out of the 388 that were ballot taken, we had 374 people that voted, and there are the numbers. We gave it to you both as a double majority vote where, if you look at the numbers, it was pretty overwhelming, 85% to 16% or so that wanted to be change the designation on there. Also on there, we gave at the very bottom of our ballot was the thing is, okay, what do you want the commissioners to know? So the next 6 sheets are all the comments that people put on the bottom of the ballot. Once again, hopefully it wasn't too confusing. You'll see some things where a lot of people were against any type of development on or employment land going up on Johnson Road. So those are pretty much, we haven't gone through and really dissected anything in particular in there because it runs pretty much on the same avenue of what the vote was. So those are there for you also. To bring a little levity there, I asked John to pose for a picture. And so they did a little caricature of him about the vote here. So this one with the,
Oh, yeah.
and I feel your pain where you're just trying, you get one thing stopped and pretty soon you have something else to go to. So we kind of threw that out. There's a little humor to try to get some people to run for the board, which is coming up in November. So that was, tried to get me in there, but I had too much hair, John. Sorry about that.
That's right.
And then the last piece is just some quotes that, and information that's come over. Like the first one was just from the tidings that basically said that, why we're in this. And it's basically that it was the commission failed to explain why Stafford designation was urban reserved property and supported by evidence. The other piece was we're asked, well, how come we're involved in this? How come that, the county is working with us to try to get some information to them about, the Stafford remand. And it's basically because we're really the only ones in play in it. I don't think there's another hamlet, a village, or any neighborhood in the county that has standing for this issue. So that's why we've done what we've done. As our committee, or our citizens have heard input from the board and conversations, one of them was that 85% of us really don't want open space in an urban setting. We want a little urban in an open setting. And I thought that was very fitting for how that fit into the process and what we've done. The next statement there is basically there's 2 options for us. Either we stay with Metro and go with Metro densities, or we actually have to change the designation, and it can't happen while we're in urban reserves. So that piece there, and that came from the county there. We have landowners, and I know there's some people that aren't happy with the way the vote turned out, but there are also large landowners out there that said, you know what, I would like to have something, and if I wait for a city to take us, I may never get that. So that's another issue that is in there. Little Henry Ford comment there about find out people that realize that, we're working hard through it, and it doesn't matter what can't be done. Let's find out what can be done, and that's kind of where we're going through. And then just comments from you people on the board. And I think Jim made a point at one of the previous meetings. I think you'll find comments or commitments from the part of the board to really look at Stafford in a different way. Chair Ludlow's comment about we don't want postage stamp lots in anywhere that are going to affect it, what we're doing. And one of the first things we did was we looked at the wilderness in the 21st century, which is a marvelous thing where they, in 1964, the act to save, I think they saved 4 million acres in the national forest in Idaho, and they actually had everybody working together. So we actually kind of based our process on that. And then, as Chair Ludlow said in the state of the county, is that, winning your trust and confidence. And I think that's what we're trying to do with you also, is to show that we understand the process. We've worked hard at it. We've been working hard at it for quite a while, and appreciate your time and your understanding, and I'm sure you'll probably have some visitors in other meetings as we go through, but this is something that we worked a unbelievable amount of time in, and we appreciate the time you've given us.
Thank you, Rick. Commissioner Smith?
Thank you, Rick. I appreciate all the work that you folks went to. I have a couple questions based on your very fine report that you just gave us. What was the methodology used to collect the ballots and count them?
We had him right there on, well, Coach, I keep calling you Coach.
Coach, that's all right.
Chair Ludlow was also there, and so they voted. We had a box. You stuffed it in the box.
And then you had a significant, you named people to a teller committee.
The board counted the votes. We had Chris Roth, who was a former liaison with us. She was there because she represents the water district, so we thought she'd be a good one to help count the votes too.
Good
so
for
it was
you.
all done on site.
Good, good. I asked the question just to give people out there reassurance that this was a very open process and nobody's trying to hide anything. So basically, you only asked 2 questions. You either asked for urban reserves or undesignated. What made you narrow it down to only those choices?
Well, if you look at, on the ballot, it's the second section there, it says, what do you want for your property? Where we put rural reserve, undesignated, and urban reserve in there, because those were the choices. And so to boil it down, where the thought was that we didn't think that opening the box to have rural reserves on that piece would be, it was never looked at before, to the point where it's going to be urban or undesignated. So we gave the people a choice to say, yeah, if it is out there where it could happen, we're going to have the 3 choices there. So instead of putting it 3 different options in the vote piece, we said, okay, give us the information and we can go through that as we.
Land use in Oregon is extremely complicated, as you know. And some reasons, I'm just guessing that people may not vote on this, because you had a little over 50% turnout, which so far is better countywide for this election. I hope that improves. But they might not understand the designations, and out of fear, if they vote for something, that's not what they really want. And therein lies the quandary that this governing body is under. There's so many different opinions, and I read through some comments. You know, it's ridiculous. I have 36 acres. I can't pass on my land to the kids if they want to build a house on it. And so I think, you know, I think you're right. We do need some flexibility out there. And people's opinions should feel worthy and what they want to do. And we had overwhelming comments, no employment lands on Johnson Road. I'm not sure I've been on Johnson Road, but maybe I have. Well, okay, that came through loud and clear for whatever reason. And then some of the comments were it's too busy, it's dangerous, or whatever. And that's the trouble, even citing our employment lands, bringing jobs to Clackamas County as our road system. So what's the cart before the horse? Chicken and the egg, which is first? But thank you very much.
Commissioner Savas.
I appreciate all the hard work you and the other members of the Hamlet have done. Early on in your comments, at the very beginning, you mentioned that you were posed with a deadline or a goal of trying to get this done by the end of October. Who imposed that?
Well, it was information as we were working through. We were working on our community vision plan, and in talking with I believe it was Gary and Dan, that it was, we need the information as soon as we can to get our ducks in a row for when we could move forward in December.
Was the information as specific as a suggesting that there was a choice to be made with regard to designation specifically?
No, I think the comment was, tell us what you want.
Okay. Yeah,
That was our choice, is to move forward of, and once again, the county's been pretty much hands-off of trying not to influence us in what we want out there. And so, there were times where we were saying, can you throw us a bone here? Give us a little idea what you want, you know? So no one said, here's the drop dead date, but I think that also in working with Dan, Gary, Barbara, that we knew that at some point in time they were gonna have to condense things, get it to you for you to make your decisions. If in fact we get a ruling here in early November to get your things done, it was like, oh, now let's wait for Stafford Hamlet to give us their information.
Well, I appreciate that. I think that, the remand was basically focused, what was unique about that was the transportation issue, not a designation issue. So it wasn't a matter of was it designated correctly. The remand was focused on, at least to Board and Stafford, particularly the transportation challenges based on what Tualatin and West Lynn had expressed. So with that said, to expand this in a whole different realm, if you will, into, well, because I read the comments, as you handed out here, and overwhelmingly, no employment land, which is a responsibility and actually a goal of this board to try to get adequate employment land. So my concern, and I've heard this expressed from others, is that, me too, in the sense that other areas feel that they ought to be opining, because if we need to make up that difference, I mean, should the Board of County Commissioners say, you know what, okay, let's take 1,000 or 2,000 or 3,000 of employment acres out of the equation, we need to make it up somewhere. And that affects the whole county. And to take employment land out specifically affects the whole county. It affects our kids and our grandkids that are leaving, graduating from school without a job. And Clackamas County's got an inordinate amount of unemployment based on that, and an inordinate shortage of employment land. So this, I understand, I appreciate all the findings and everything, but this is now, based on this, kind of opens up a can of worms where, if not here, then where? How do we meet the needs and the goals of the board and the goals and needs of the citizens of the county? So this has got great implications to the to the region as well. So I think other hamlets have, other CPOs have expressed to me, do we get equal time? You got about 20 minutes here almost this morning. I think that other folks will want to say, me too. And I kind of heard that expressed already. So this will just make things a little bit more difficult. I guess when the meetings I attended, it was what do people vision? And I appreciate the community vision and value plan that you guys worked on in 2009, I think completed in 2010, I believe. And I think the results are similar, but it was more under the confines of or not the confines, but your vision of what your community will look like in the future, not particularly like a designation. And I do know I heard expressed for some people that just chose not to participate in the voting. I don't know what that number ultimately is. We can't gauge that. We can certainly gauge who did vote, obviously. But I appreciate the time and effort, and thanks for the clarification.
Yeah, man, I think that one thing is you look at the visions and value statement, and that it was once again, a great vote, that we had a great turnout, and that the employment land piece was always designated to the Borland employment area. And then there was talk of maybe some type of things, medical type things up of Johnson Road. So that's where the Johnson Road piece came into it. And I think if you look at what we've gone back to, and once again, I'm gonna leave up why it was remanded and all those things to the lawyers, because Lord knows I don't ever want to even think about going in that direction. But once again, Beaver Creek, the villages, other things, they're not part of this remand, as far as I can understand. And I know there's a bigger picture, and I know those things. So I think that's some of the issues that I hear, and say bring it forward, and we'll see where it goes in that. And once again, I think that there were people, but the only people that we know that did not vote, there were 7 people that signed a letter.
Rick, I got to get this right, because we have a lot of people behind you. But my point is, yes, I thought, by the way, the balloting was very fair. You had the arguments for and against right in the room where people could be explained to, left with it to read, et cetera. And the anomaly here, and why I asked you to come do this report, is because there is no other areas, hamlets, villages, or really CPOs, that have a proposal to go into the urban growth boundary, especially this amount of land that could result, if all of it was developed, into a new city of 35,000 people. So I appreciate that you did the work, did great work, very fair work, and brought your opinions forward to us. But as far as additional CPOs and hamlets and villages coming forward to tell us their important news, that's great, but there's no quite situation like you're under there, and thus the information, Commissioner Savas.
Well, thank you for that. And once again, I think it's that piece what we are differently, we are unique, and I know everybody thinks they're, but we are because of, what we are, that Stafford character. And I also know that we have the characters of Stafford too, so.
Yes, you do.
That will be here, I'm sure, at some point in time.
I'm sure
picking
that's
on me as you, and we'll go from there.
Everybody. Commissioner Savas.
So my question is more to the chair, and that is, I was just kind of asking for clarification. You just mentioned that there's a proposal to bring this into the urban growth boundary?
I think that the whole idea of developing the Stafford area, if it is to be developed, is it would have to come into somebody's UGB. I mean, that's been known for some time. And in fact, 2 cities are suing us, saying we don't want it. And that the remand, that, by the way, that's been mentioned here, is it's been remanded back. LCDC has yet to send us a note on that. That should be coming here fairly soon. But there will be no growth in the Stafford area unless it comes into somebody's UGB. Whether that happens or not, it's remained to be seen.
Well, my question was, is there a proposal to bring it in the UGB?
Have you seen it?
Well, you mentioned there was. I was just asking.
I think I mentioned that this area, as designated by Metro, they would like to see it grow. Now, the urban growth reserves is just exactly that. It's the first stage to bring it forward into somebody's UGB. There's no somebody right now. So I believe that there's a great deal of people out there that would love to see this in somebody's UGB, and there's a great deal of people who think, no, that would not be a good idea, and thus is the conundrum, but I don't see any specific proposal by any city to bring it in their UGB yet, and we'll see how that happens. Thank you very much for your advice today, Rick.
Thank you.
In closing, Chair, I just want to say there's got to be a fairness issue. I mean, there's people that want to be part of an urban growth boundary expansion. There are people that felt that they have not had equal access to the board, and as a matter of fact, the county's being sued for just that. So I think it's critical that we consider the entire county in anything that we do, and I understand the interest in that area. Particularly, I don't have one personally, but I think we have to think about the whole county.
We're all interested in all of Clackamas County. Thank you again, Rick. Appreciate it.
Thank you. Appreciate your time.
So now, Mr. Krupp. Oh, not Mr. Krupp. It is time actually for citizens' communication. So we have several. I'll call you up in twos. Yvonne Lazarus and Mariana Moore, followed by Les Poole.
I have one more, too.
Oh, yeah, followed by Les Poole and... Yeah. Mariana? Oh, you're here. Okay, good. And it'll be Mac Woods and Les Poole after these 2 ladies.
Good morning. Well, I was really sorry to hear what Sherry had to say, too. I'm very angry at you people out there in Clackamas County. This isn't what I came to talk about, but I'm going to get it off my chest. People died so we could vote. I just don't understand it. And then we cry about what we get, like light rail. Go vote, and don't vote because you see a name and you recognize it. Know who you're voting for and what they're going to do for us. You're going to reap what you vote, you're going to reap it later, and you're going to reap it more, just like we are right down at Park Avenue. Okay, that isn't what I came to talk about. What I came to talk about is Oak Grove and the businesses in Oak Grove. The people in that vicinity that live in the unincorporated area, I would really like to see you support all of those business. We have a new business coming in that it's called Sesame Donuts. That's up on McLaughlin, and Mary Margaret McFeeney. I'm going to show this. She has a little shop. I hope you can see this.
Yeah, hold it right there. It's on. You're on camera.
Okay, she's been around for a while, but people don't go in there for birthdays. They don't go in there for if you just want to pick up a card. We need to do that for these little local businesses like this. So I'm hoping that you will hear me. Christmas is coming, and she has a lot of really nice stuff. Now, the other thing I have to talk to you about is codes. On my street for 14 years, because that's how long I've lived there, I've been fighting this. And I did get a hold of the code department, and couldn't believe it, finally, they called me back. And they actually sent someone out, and they're going to see what they can do. There's an easement out there. And this summer, a branch, a huge branch, fell off of a tree and landed in the street. It almost hit somebody. And the fella who lives at 17, give me just a minute. The fella who lives at, I think it's 1819, he has a huge yard. And because it's unincorporated, and I'm all for it because I live in that area, it's next door to me. But even if you're unincorporated, you should take care of your property. Children go through that easement to go to school. He does not clean up his side of it. Or what the code department told me, maybe I didn't understand. Who's responsible for that area?
Well, I got to tell you, I've got a lot of blue cards up here and 2 public hearings in front of us, so usually you know how generous this
I
commission
know,
is
I
in
know,
regards
I know.
to time, but I think you've talked with code enforcement. You know,
But I didn't understand who takes care of this.
if it's on somebody's personal property, okay, and you simply just don't like the sight of it, unless it poses a health problem, it probably won't be cured by us. It's by negotiation with your neighbor.
And is that private negotiation, or does the county?
Well, we're not going to be interveners and have mediation
Okay,
sessions.
I'm just
you know.
asking.
Well, and this has been a subject of consideration for this board. The previous board is code enforcement. How much do they do? We had a performance evaluation, which we're going to take up this next week. So
Okay.
be sure to listen in on those. We're going to talk about reformations for code enforcement, because it is very expensive, and yet, you know, there has been some problems that were recognized in the performance audit, and so we'll continue working on it. But we have limited ways of entering people's private property and telling them what to do, and I kind of like it that way. Okay, thank you, Yvonne. Mariana?
Yeah, Mariana Moore from Gladstone. I want to support her in getting the vote out and some of these other issues. This is a big weekend coming, Halloween tomorrow, and I don't usually come all in black, and especially if you come in through the cul-de-sac to get to my house. There's like 13 houses on there, and there's one of the new fashioned lights in there that doesn't light it at all. It's darker than pitch coming through that cul-de-sac and up to my house. So I probably won't get any trick-or-treaters, but I would love to have them. Anyway, so we get trick-or-treaters, get a trick-or-treat, and then before we see you again, we'll also have whatever happens with the election. And I do want to encourage people to get out and vote. And if there's anybody that needs help, I'm sure there's people that be more than willing to help you and get their message out, too. We have a lot of good candidates, and there's a lot of things that have been going on in the state that are really scary. So I hope people take a good look at who's running and make some changes. And so I think that's basically all I wanted to say this morning for this
Thank you,
part.
Mariana. And beyond, of course, being careful, tomorrow night, I would encourage everybody to go slow around neighborhoods, because these
gosh,
children
yes.
don't necessarily dress with reflectors on. They have cute outfits on, but sometimes, like you say, they're black. Doesn't help visibility at all. Now,
And
by the way,
it's
in regards
so
to your lighting,
dark.
if you are part of a lighting district, you can certainly just petition them, or your neighbors can, to add an additional street light.
Oh, well, that's
So
nice
if
to
you're
know,
part of a
because
lighting
it
district,
sure is dark.
They definitely listen to that, okay?
Those new lights just come straight down, and they don't seem to light the cul-de-sac at all.
Well, one of the reasons for doing that is people complain that the lights were coming in their second-story rooms, so, you know, it's,
I guess, but,
driving and walking is the primary function.
yeah, and
to
then, of
eliminate
course, I'm just below Oatfield, and Oatfield is so dark through there. It's just, it frightens me to think of people because I see them sometimes walking or riding their bikes, and you're as close as I am to you guys before you can see them there because the lights are so bad.
Right.
Thank you.
So,
Mariana.
thank you.
All right, Mac Woods and Les Poole. Go ahead and start, Les.
Good morning. Well, I'm in the lucky position of being able to speak after Yvonne and before Mac. It's an honor. I appreciate the comments about Stafford and the response, and I know I'm being repetitive, but I'm going to say it again. The elephant in the room is Metro, and these folks need to be in front of Metro every week, practically, on Thursday at 2 o'clock. Metro holds meetings that dramatically affect the entire region, and Metro has some mandates and some political solutions, including climate smart that we'll talk about later, that are not well vetted, that seem to be very political rather than practical. And we've got a lot of economic imbalance in the region, and I think the result, or how we got there, was a lot of Metro's policies. And I think the county and the cities become hamstrung and find themselves in a strange place, let's just put it that way, because Metro has so much authority over the region. I brought some candy for everyone, and that's a thank you. Big thank you for listening and taking some time to do what you could to address the situation at Park Avenue. It's an awkward situation. I know the county didn't create it, but anything we can do to help would be a real bonus. I sent you all an email and some photos that hopefully you have a chance to review. I certainly want to thank Marianne Paradise and the other Elks members, and my hero, Thelma Hagen-Miller, for stepping up and, amongst other things, showing up with 140 plus signatures from concerned citizens that would like to see something done there. You got lots of folks that need to talk today, so I'll cut it short, and thank you.
Thank you, Les.
Thank you, Les. Mr. Woods.
Thank you, Chair Ludlow and Commissioners. I am MacArthur Woods. My message today is not just for you commissioners, but to all taxpayers in Oregon with only 5 days left to vote. All veterans are legal voters, and most are struggling just to pay our property taxes. My message today is to reach out to all veterans. They can't come here, they're working. Is to not for the veterans not to vote, forget to vote, but get out and vote. I'm just one of many veterans in Oregon, and we know Clackamas County is in a mess, as well as the whole state of Oregon, and we don't know why. It's time to change the guard. That means remember to vote, note who to vote for, and vote. Attention on deck, that's a Navy term. That means attention, listen to us. And that's all other veterans and all other services understand likewise. Vote. We don't know what we don't know. I'm talking about us veterans. We don't know what we don't know about politicians. And if any of them today have ever served in our military, therefore not qualified and know nothing about us real veterans, most politicians could care less about veterans and what they are doing to us, as they all vote to raise our property taxes. All includes disabled veterans with missing limbs, and also includes the widows of the veterans, those husbands who have paid the ultimate sacrifice. Okay, sorry. I've learned, and they struggle alone, just trying to pay the cotton picking taxes. I've learned that politicians never mention anything about a veteran except as a ruse to get votes when they're running for a political seat to get elected. Then they walk on us. I was taught long ago in school in America is known as land of the free and home of the brave. Most all politicians are in it for three reasons: control, easy living, big fat paycheck with all the perks far greater than any hardworking veteran ever gets or ever has gotten. Fellow veterans, look what the incumbents have done to us as they put us deeper in debt and spend our taxes foolishly on things like the light rail, the CRC crossing with the governor, while the governor wasted millions of our tax dollars on Cover Oregon, not to mention how much he wasted on his girlfriend now living in the Capitol building. $300 million, I've heard. I'd like to see the proof. I'd like to see the facts. I balanced my checkbook. I'd like to see somebody else. Fellow veterans, remember out there in the field, remember to vote. And I can assure you of just one thing. Dennis Richardson is a veteran. I served with him in Vietnam. I've talked to a few other good people that are running for a seat, like Monica Webby, Sherry Hall right here. Honest, trustworthy. We can all look, hats off to her. And reasons for running against the incumbents and the anti-veterans.
Got to wrap it up,
Thank
Mac.
you, veterans, and we can all take America back. I'm sorry for those. I just had surgery 4 days ago. I'm talking on one half of the left lung.
Thank you, Mac. I might note, as to your allegation that we only pay attention to veterans when it's election time, that is false.
I'm sorry, I can't hear good. Speak up a
You
little.
said that we only pay attention to veterans come election time.
No, I ain't talking about you. I'm talking about the corrupt ones.
Well, Monica Webby wasn't in the service, neither was Sherry Hall. And
I didn't
and
say
people,
she was.
People
We
who
play
are
it
not,
and listen to it.
Mac, you got to let me finish. I let you finish. The point of the matter is it doesn't matter if you've served in the military. Do you honor those who have? And every budget time, we allocate more and more money to veteran services, including, by the way, this last time we created a position to send people out to find our homeless veterans. And that's what they're doing right now. So some of us, regardless of our military service or lack thereof, I tried to join 4 different branches and they didn't want me. Even though I was a state wrestling champion, I had a crooked arm and they didn't like it. So just because we didn't serve doesn't mean we don't care. Some don't do, some don't, but I will assure you this commission has put money behind their mouth as to their caring for veterans. So I just want to point that out.
Thank you for that explanation. I'll keep that in mind. But I'm here to tell you we need to talk because I can educate you on veterans, what you don't know about veterans and what most politicians don't know about veterans.
As you said
So
before,
schedule a time. I'll be there. I got the time, my friend.
we don't know what we don't know.
You don't know what you don't know, particularly politicians.
I heard a description, Phil Kiesling the other
Thanks
day.
for the
Let me finish again, will you? Phil Kiesling, a great educator, was speaking the other day, and he said one of his students decided to define politics. And the student said, "Poly is, in Latin, many. Ticks, they're bloodsuckers." So anyway, oh, no, that's totally inappropriate. Anyway. So on to more business at hand. That concludes the citizens' testimony. And we are now, Mr. Krupp, into our public hearings.
Well, yes, you need to convene, though, as the North
Oh,
Clackamas
excuse
Parks and
me. I will
Recreation.
announce that the board will recess as the Board of County Commissioners and convene as the North Clackamas Parks and Recreation District Board for this next item. Yes, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. We have before you this morning the second reading of Ordinance Number 6, 2014, which would amend the requirements relating to system development charges for the North Clackamas Parks and Recreation District. I'm going to invite Mr. Chris Storey to give you a report on the status of the Second Amendment that's pending. Second reading.
Good morning, Commissioners. Thank you. It's a pleasure to be here.
I thank you. I'm sure it is.
It is, absolutely. We come before you for a second reading of a proposed ordinance regarding North Clackamas Park and Recreation District's System Development Charge Ordinance. Under the current ordinance, the ability for the district to levy a charge, just to wind back a little bit, SDCs are the ability to charge new development for the costs of the impacts of their growth on the existing system. The current system development charge ordinance allows the NCPRD district to collect revenues, and that revenue is split in two different ways. The first way is to pay for what's called neighborhood or zone projects, and the second is for district-wide projects. There are two different SDC charges that are charged, and then they are then combined and collected at the point of permit issuance. Under the proposed ordinance before you today, that system would continue, but the ability to expend those revenues that are generated from development would be restricted to within the zones in which they are developed. The second component of the proposed amendment would be to change the composition of the current zones. In NCPRD, there are 3 current zones. Zone 1 represents the city of Milwaukee and is contemporaneous with their boundaries. Zone 2 represents all of the unincorporated area west of I-205. And Zone 3 includes the city of Happy Valley, a portion of the city of Damascus, and the unincorporated area east of I-205. The proposed boundary revision would move areas that are currently in Zone 2 into Zone 1, matching the urban growth management area that has been designated in the urban growth management agreement between the county and the city of Milwaukee, so that Zone 1 would be the city of Milwaukee and the areas that we anticipate will be part of the city of Milwaukee in the future. This proposal, I think, was the subject of discussion in multiple study sessions, and we had a first reading at the October 16th business meeting. I am available for your questions.
All right, Commissioners, any questions of the presenters at this time? All right. I will open the public hearing and tell you that I do have some cards here. They are from Thelma Hagenmiller and Counselor Michael Morrow from the city of Happy Valley. Well, either one of you can start. Sorry.
Good morning, Chair Ludlow and fellow commissioners. First of all, I did not ask to be under this issue. I asked to be under citizen communication, so I'm not going to address the SDC problem.
Thelma.
My name is Thelma Hagenmiller. I am a resident of the unincorporated area of North Clackamas County known as Oak Grove. I am also a voter in the North Clackamas Parks and Recreation District. Very fitting that Sherry went first this morning because I have received numerous emails and phone calls from other Parks District voters asking my opinion on the confusing and convoluted Parks Measure 3-451 on their ballot. I tell each of them to just vote no. Consider the other things that are soon to be before you asking for money, such as the 800 megahertz emergency communication system that is rapidly becoming obsolete and needs to be upgraded so our emergency responders can communicate with each other in the coming disaster. The coming disaster, not if, not the coming. It is coming. The deferred county road maintenance that is affecting our economy, our emergency vehicle response, and our own personal vehicle maintenance. And then, of course, there's the unfunded mandate of Metro's Climate Stupid program you're going to be talking about in a little bit. The schools are also asking or talking about their next bond measure. Even the Parks District itself will need additional bond money to support all the aspirations they are trying to sell to you right now. Increasing the Parks District's tax base is not a legal requirement of the change to a 266 Special Parks District, yet they chose to do it with this measure. Fellow voters, set your own priorities. Send the parks people back to the drawing board to rethink their special district proposal. Just vote no on Measure 3-451. Thank you.
Thank you, Thelma. We'll now reopen that public hearing and say, Mr. Morrow.
Thank you, Chair, Commissioners. I'm here with Mayor Lori Dreamer and City Manager Jason Tuck. I'm here to speak in favor of this ordinance. You heard me last time. Again, I want to stress that we're talking just about the SDCs. We're not talking about the ability to move tax money. We're just talking about SDCs, which is there to build capacity. We have a lot of growth in Happy Valley. That's where the capacity needs to be right now. That's why we need to keep those SDCs in that district. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor Morrow. Commissioner Savas.
Yes, Councilor Morrow. I was wondering if you feel that if this activity we're taking here is making this change with the SDC will satisfy the council's interest in staying in the district.
I think it'll go a long way towards that. I can't speak for every counselor, but and I know you've had conversations with some of my fellow counselors, but I think this is the type of thing we're looking for so that we will stay in the district.
Yeah, as a member of the district, someone who lives in the district, and I've been paying in both from my personal property tax and my business tax for years. My concern is that if should any city, whether it be Milwaukee or Happy Valley, choose to withdraw from the district, that it may place a pretty large burden on trying to maintain the existing assets that have been built in that area. So particularly a lot of the new parks that have been built outside of the city of Happy Valley, but within the urban growth management area of the city of Happy Valley, which we would still be, I believe, may have to maintain, because you couldn't withdraw that. You could only withdraw what's in the city boundaries currently. So my concern, again, is the maintenance cost to maintain all those parks in that area. So thanks for your comments today.
Yeah. Thank you, Bo. All right, I'm going to close the public hearing and ask for a motion.
Mr. Chair, I move we read ordinance number 06-2014 by title only.
Is there a second?
I'll second that.
Second.
Oh, Martha, I almost forgot about you. I didn't mean to.
Chair Ludlow, I've been here listening quietly the entire time.
Hey, we just flashed your picture up on the screen. Thank you for the second.
There you go.
All right, motion made by Commissioner Smith, seconded by Commissioner Schrader in Great Britain. And so I'll ask the clerk to call the poll.
Commissioner Schrader?
Aye.
Commissioner Smith?
Aye.
Commissioner Savas?
Aye.
Chair Ludlow?
Aye, passes 4-0. I'll ask the clerk to read the ordinance by title only.
Okay, this is ordinance number 06-2014, an ordinance amending North Clackamas Parks and Recreation District's ordinance for system development charges on new development.
All right, it's been, well, let's see here. I'm confused, Mary.
Ask for a motion to adopt the ordinance.
Yes, yes. I'll ask for a motion to adopt the ordinance. I'll find my place, yeah.
Go ahead.
All right, go ahead.
I move we adopt ordinance number 06-2014, an amendment to North Clackamas Parks and Recreation District Parks and Recreation System Development Charge on new developments.
All right, is there a second?
I'll second that.
Commissioner Savas with the motion, Commissioner Smith with the second. Any further discussion, clarification, or questions? All right, Mary, the poll.
Commissioner Savas?
Aye.
Commissioner Smith?
Aye.
Commissioner Schrader?
Aye.
Chair Ludlow?
Aye, passes 4-0. I'll announce the board will adjourn as the North Clackamas Parks and Recreation District, and reconvene as the Board of County Commissioners for the remainder of the meeting. All right. So discussion items. We have a discussion item today. And I believe Mr. Chandler is coming up.
No,
Well, this is not,
We have two.
oh, Mr. Krupp, I apologize, yes.
If I may, Mr. Chair,
We have two of them, yes.
Two discussion items. The first one is presented by Health, Housing, and Human Services. I'm going to invite Brenda Durbin from Social Services up to present this. This involves the adoption of the Clackamas County 2014 update to the 10-year plan and policy to end homelessness.
Good morning, Chair Ludlow, members of the Commission. My name is Brenda Durbin. I'm the Director of Clackamas County Social Services, and I'm here today to ask for formal adoption of the 2014 updates to the 10-year plan to address homelessness, and also ask for a change in the title from addressing homelessness to ending homelessness. The original plan was adopted in 2007 by the Board of County Commissioners. A very abbreviated list of accomplishments since 2007 include nearly 800 homeless households have found stable housing. Over 600 households have received rent assistance to prevent eviction and to stop the potential homelessness of those households and the attendant trauma that is experienced by individuals who are forced to leave their home. We've been able to establish 3 warming centers. This means that when the temperatures drop to dangerously cold temperatures, no one has to sleep outside in Clackamas County. A safe place is opened. This is a family justice center where people who have experienced sexual or domestic violence are able to access a number of services in one location. And we've established the Homeless Policy Council. This is an opportunity for leaders in various sectors to come together to address homelessness on a policy level. So Clackamas County has much to be proud of, and there's much more that needs to be done. The 2013 point-in-time homeless count identified over 2,000 homeless individuals living in Clackamas County. Nearly half of these were children under the age of 18. We identified 26 individuals who were senior citizens, 65 or over, and 75 of our homeless individuals in Clackamas County were veterans, served in the military. So the 2014 updates really emphasize coordination. The county can't do everything together. It's going to take the faith community, businesses, education, public safety, and the nonprofit sector all working in coordination to establish efficient and effective strategies to end homelessness. And this update is really timely. There's been changes that happened at the federal level. We've seen a real evolution of the homeless system in Clackamas County. And this plan really identifies coordination opportunities and applies best practices to address and ultimately end homelessness in Clackamas County.
Thank you. Commissioners, any clarifying questions? I will say that, this board unanimously established their strategic plan and the goals therein, now called Performance Clackamas, and ending homelessness is one of the things that we agreed on that was very important to our future. Commissioner Smith.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I think homelessness can best be addressed by recognizing why people are homeless, and there's various reasons out there. I would like to see a prosperous Clackamas County, and in our vision statement plan that we put forward is to increase 10,000 jobs in Clackamas County within 5 years and give everybody an opportunity to be gainfully employed doing something that makes them feel worthy. Receiving a paycheck is certainly a worthy endeavor. We're working on plans. We have some projects that this commission is working very hard on to fruition. And I want to, Brenda, thank the staff for also recognizing the opportunity to provide jobs through our program that Martha's been involved on and our workplace development, training people who may need some skills for the evolving workplace, meeting with employers. Employers desire certain skills. And so we're trying to bring all this together to make us a better place to live. And thank you for that, Brenda.
Commissioner Savas.
I don't have any questions, but I do have a comment similar to Commissioner Smith's comments, I think this employment land issue is really a crisis, and the consequences of not having a job are homelessness. It is poverty. It's a number of things that are affecting the county's resources, that we try to help these folks that are in desperate need because they don't have the resources to put a roof over their heads in many cases. So this is important, but I do believe that one of the things that we need to do, and our goals align with that, is that employment land issue. And every square inch of Clackamas County, we have to consider how we meet that need and do it within the confines of our land use system in the state. But I think a lot of these folks want to have a job, and they want to be on their own, and they want to be prosperous. Some people actually refuse any help because the pride that they have. So it's just a very difficult situation for those that are struggling to take care of themselves and their family and cope with all these things. So I think the road out of this and the means, we have to address the means with what we have, which is limited. But again, that employment land piece is huge, and I think the region needs to take this on and say, how do we actually address some of the state planning goals, and most importantly, Goal 9, which is economic development, which really leads to jobs and prosperity. So we need to turn the tide and turn the focus on lifting this area out of poverty.
This is a public discussion item, and I'll call you forward. First is Angela Trimble and Martha McLennan.
Good morning, Commissioners. Thank you for allowing us to come today. I'm going to have my Executive Director start because it just seems more appropriate to have her go before me. So I'm going to introduce Martha McLennan first.
And I was going to let you go first. Okay.
No, after you.
I'm Martha McLennan. I'm the Executive Director of Northwest Housing Alternatives, and I am a member of the Homeless Policy Council. I do want to applaud the Commission for its commitment to address this issue as aggressively as it possibly can. We have seen increases in funding from the county, from the federal government, and then for a very small amount from the state government. And that is really helping us to provide service to more people, which is really important. At the same time, the issue of homelessness continues to plague communities. I understand that the homeless count from the Department of Education, the homeless school count, is going to come out in a couple of weeks, and the rumor mill has it that it's not going to be good. So we know that this is continuing to be a challenge, and in the suburbs, it really is an issue of family homelessness, not the kind of classic stereotype of male single homelessness that you see in the central city. So it's especially important to address that because those kids have so much in their futures that is at stake when they experience the trauma of homelessness. I do recommend that you adopt this update. I think it is a good reflection of where we've come in the last 7 years and some of the direction that we want to take in the coming years. The one thing I would ask the county board to join with us and other advocates in is making an increase in the state homeless assistance program and the state emergency housing account a top priority for the 2015 legislative agenda. They did increase funding for the first time in the 2014 session, a very small increase, but that's the first increase that the state has made since 2007. And we really need to make that an ongoing increase, and we need to make it larger. So I hope that you'll look at that as you develop your legislative agenda for the year.
Thank you.
Thank you, Martha.
I'm Angela Trimble, and I'm the Director of Homeless Intervention Services with Northwest Housing Alternatives. And when I started in 2007 was my first year when we adopted the first time the plan. We only had the emergency shelter, the Annie Ross House and Transitional Housing, and we were maybe serving 40 households a year. And today, because of the increase of the services that you guys have supported over the years, we are now able to serve 230 households a year and to be able to reach out to almost 500 individuals a year. I just want to thank you for those efforts and to ask you to also adopt the update that is being presented. I wanted to share that in 2013-14 fiscal year that 469 individuals were served, and of the people that left the program, 83% left to permanent housing, and that is because of the services that you've supported over the years, and I want to thank you for that. We are seeing that 57% of the households that we are seeing are affected by domestic violence. 53% of the households have a member with a disabling condition. We are seeing that 46% of the individuals served were persons of color. 24% of the individuals served were from the Latino community. And we had 3% that were veterans, and 49% of those households were led by female head of households. And I just wanted to share some of those statistics with you and share what we're seeing out there. We are trying to understand what's going on in folks' lives and to try to not just put a check and to send money and put a Band-Aid over the situation. We are trying to understand and develop a relationship to help them turn their lives around. And I just wanted to thank you very much for supporting those efforts over the years. So thank you.
Thank you both. Mr. Mike Miller.
Sorry I didn't put my name on the card, but I'm here supporting a graduate of my program, Mike Miller. My name is Christina McNeese. I work for Clackamas County Social Services, and I case manage the Hope Supportive Housing Program that is for chronically homeless and disabled individuals, the stereotypical person that people like to really brand when it comes to homelessness. And Mike is one of those successes that I'm really proud of. I hate public speaking, I apologize. But if he can do it, I can do it. So I'm really proud of, because you don't become homeless just because you can't get a job. You don't become homeless just because you use drugs. It is a whole human being. And I don't care if you are an addict. I don't care if you're sitting on someone's steps, loitering people, those are human beings. So this is a wonderful person, human being, who through the HOPE program was housed stably for the first time in his life for 9 years. And he recently graduated. And this is proof that people who are homeless want something different. They maybe just lack some supports, didn't have things growing up, or, there's a myriad of things. But I'll let him take over, I'm sorry.
Thank you for letting me talk today. This is something that's really close and dear to me. Life has been not a picnic, but I had all these things today that I wanted to share and stuff, but I've been watching this stupid little clock, and it goes by pretty quick. So I got to shorten it up a little bit. But, I could not do anything. I could get myself together and I could maintain for 2 or 3 months. I could never hold a job. I would, I didn't know why. I just, I guess I just figured I was lazy or something, but there was something that it would come to a point where I'd go to the door to walk into work, and eventually I just couldn't open that door, and I'd leave. I'd run. I can't tell you how many times I've worked someplace and just left my last check there, never went back. There was something in me that I just couldn't deal with life, and that got me into the drugs, the alcohol, crimes. I spent tons of time right here in Clackamas County Jail. I spent 6 4th of Julys in a row locked up over here in this county jail when I was like 18. You know, all my life was like that, in and out of jail. Police weren't my enemy. They were my saviors. That was my safety net. Once or twice, there's been a cop that, you know, wasn't too nice. But for the majority of them, they always treated me fair. I don't have a complaint at all about any of them. They got a thankless job. But I counted on them. That was my safety net, place to go and heal up. I've been chronically homeless since I was like 13. My dad died when I was 10. Mom had to work. So it was just me from the time that I was about 10. And life was just really messed up. I've been to prison 3 times. County jails up and down California, Oregon, Washington, just countless times. I have no idea how many. Until it got bad enough for me to try to commit suicide. And that got me in touch with mental health. And mental health put me in touch with the Hope Project. And I cannot tell you how important it is that this continues. One thing that I always think about myself is how I am and stuff is I can't be the only one out there that's like this. Somebody needs a chance. And by the grace of God, I was lucky. I don't know how these stepping stones got put in place exactly, but I took them. It's been 9 years, and now I have a place to live. I have a girlfriend. My longest relationship before this was a couple years, and we've been together now for 8 years. I have pets. One that I've had for almost 10 years now. I could never keep pets or anything because I was in and out of jail. I'd get out of jail and they'd be gone. One of my visual aids. This is something that, up until probably a year ago, wasn't possible. But these are all my rent receipts, and this is my first housing letter that I got from housing back in 2005, and I just got on housing last August, so that's why I graduated the program. This is every rent receipt. This was never ever an option that I could do before, but thanks to the patience and the care of everybody from Hope Project and mental health over here. Here I am today talking to you, and I was that person on the sidewalk that you guys crossed the street to avoid, That was me. It was bad. Out there for weeks and months without, being able to clean up. Whatever money I did get went to drugs so I could forget about how things were. That's really it. This is just so important. You just cannot let this down. That's all.
Mike, that has got to be the most riveting and impactful. I think we appreciate your candor, your honesty, and your bravery to come up and say those things. And do you have a job now?
No, I have disabilities that. Okay. This is something else that the Hope Project has helped me with. I didn't think I'd ever get it. At first I thought I was pulling something over somebody's eyes or something. I had a pretty good little gig going here. Somebody was paying my rent and stuff. And then as the years went by, it turned me around. and they knew I needed help. It just took time for me to realize that I needed help.
Thank you, Mike.
Thank you, sir. Thank you for coming today.
Congratulations.
I'll ask for a motion.
I move we adopt the Clackamas County 2014 update to the 10-year plan and policy to end homelessness.
Is there a second?
I'll second that.
Commissioner Smith with the motion, Commissioner Savas with the second. Any further discussion? I'll ask the clerk to call the poll.
Commissioner Schrader?
Aye.
Commissioner Smith?
Aye.
Commissioner Savas?
Aye.
Chair Ludlow?
Aye, passes 4-0. Mr. Krupp.
Thank you. Yes, thank you, Mr. Chair. The second discussion item on today's agenda is an opportunity for the public to address the board regarding Metro's Climate Smart Community Strategy. I'm going to ask Mr. Dan Chandler to give a report to the board, and then you'll be able to open it up for public comment. Mr. Chandler?
I'm waiting for the screen to come up. Thank you. Good morning. We're here to take, as Mr. Krupp said, this is to take public testimony on Metro's preferred scenario for climate smart communities, which is a legislatively mandated greenhouse reduction strategy. I'd like to make a couple key points before we start this brief presentation. This is not a county project. It's not a project that county staff are advocating for. We're really here to give you some brief outline of it and then hear public testimony. I would also remind folks that Metro is an elected government, and you certainly have the ability to contact them directly. They have a public comment period that unfortunately closes today on the specifics of the measure, but it won't be adopted until, I believe, December of this year. Give you a little bit of quick background on how we got here. 2007, the state legislature adopted a set of greenhouse gas reduction goals. However, they were generally voluntary. There were no teeth. In 2008, the Metro Council adopted 2 resolutions adopting their own climate, I guess they did call it climate smart communities back in 2008, through 2 resolutions. However, that was really still a voluntary and sort of political strategy about Metro and about what Metro intended to do. In 2009, the legislature in the Jobs and Transportation Act, which is principally a transportation funding measure, did require then metropolitan planning areas throughout the state to adopt greenhouse gas reductions. For this metro region, the requirement is to come up with a plan to reduce greenhouse gas emissions by 20% below the 2005 levels by 2035. There were also requirements imposed on other jurisdictions around the state. I don't know the reason for the differences between 17% in Salem and Kaiser and 20% in Portland Metro, and I'll make no comment about hot air in Salem already. So Metro then began its work, and I won't say much about it other than there have been several years of creating options, testing them, whittling them down. It's been somewhat from the outside of a black box approach. It's difficult to tell what assumptions have gone into their modeling and those sorts of things, but there's been a tremendous amount of technical work. So in September of this year, then, they came up with a draft preferred scenario. It contains 5 elements. It was published for public comment in September. And I'll go through each of these elements pretty quickly, talk about what they mean and how much they cost, and then we can turn quickly to taking public testimony. So the first element is make transit convenient, frequent, accessible, and affordable. So we're talking about frequency, expanding the system, better access to transit stops, and also potentially lowering fares. There's a map of some of the expansion areas in the light yellow. Estimated cost of that will be $4.4 billion in capital and $8 billion for operations over the next 21 years. The next piece of the strategy is to make biking and walking safe and convenient. They plan, the strategy includes 663 miles of bikeways, sidewalks, and trails added by 2035. The light, what's showing up here as light blue is really light gray in the original, are the additional trail connections that would be made. I will say, however, that this is a piece of the existing active transportation plan, which is part of the regional transportation plan. A key piece of Metro's decision-making process was to confirm that the region was committed to implementing the plans that it already had in place, and that includes the local governments. They found actually that simply implementing our existing plans would go a long way towards meeting those goals, but this is part of the RTP, Regional Transportation Plan. Estimated cost of the ped and bike connection is $2 billion. Other piece of the strategy is to make streets and highways safe, reliable, and connected. What that means is that we would implement the Regional Transportation Plan that was adopted. It's considered the financially constrained part of the plan. There's two pieces of this plan, and they include money that we think we might get, and then things that we would like to do that we don't have any idea where we would come up with the money. This includes the constrained RTP. Again, that's $8.8 billion in capital and $12 million in operations and maintenance. So those are the big cost items. The next two were to use technology to actively manage the transportation system. This is things like signal timing, on-ramp signals, the highway info signs we've been seeing that talk about how long it takes to get from one place to another, so folks have the option of taking alternate routes. Relatively low cost, $206 million. They determined that it would have a fairly high climate reduction benefit. Finally, provide information and incentives to expand the use of travel options. This is stuff that goes on a lot today, encouraging commuting in businesses, making it easier, incentives, those kinds of things, more information. Managing parking to make efficient use of land and parking spaces. This, frankly, hasn't, at least publicly, been very well defined. They're talking in some places about potentially having preferred parking for alternative fuel vehicles, pardon me. Parking garages, restricted parking. They don't make any cost estimate for this, and it would primarily just be implemented through local code development. So the overall cost of this is $260 million a year. Again, I would note that much of that cost is for items that are already set out in the Regional Transportation Plan. If you run the numbers, about 40% of the cost, the overall cost, would be for multimodal, ped and bike, and transit projects. Again, it was legislatively mandated that Metro do this. So really, as we've carried forward, we've talked about making sure that Clackamas County's interests are protected as the thing goes forward, at least at the staff level. That's what we've tried to do. And the three key features of that is we want to make sure that we retain local flexibility to implement this stuff, that really there's a toolbox approach and that local governments will pick, because obviously what works in downtown Portland doesn't work in Oregon City, may not work in the town center. So in our view, it's been critical to maintain that local flexibility. Second, we want to assure that this climate smart community strategy doesn't become a vehicle to fund multimodal transport and transit at the expense of the roadway system. So that's been a key factor for Clackamas County. And third, we want to make sure that we would have the ability, the county and its cities, to look at doing alternative or supplemental transit service for our neighborhoods. Forest Grove has a program, for example, where they've created a supplemental transit system that works in addition to TriMet. They've got a fairly high level of ridership. And we think there are a lot of cities and neighborhoods in Clackamas County where that kind of a system might work. The Board of Commissioners sent a letter out, I believe it went out earlier this week, laying out those key points. There were copies of it at the table outside. A number of our commissioners will be, along with folks from around the region, at a joint meeting of Metro's Policy Advisory Committee and the Joint Policy Advisory Committee on Transportation, that's MPAC and JPAC. They're going to have a joint meeting next Friday, again, to talk about a recommendation on how to go forward. So the direct comment period, as I said, with Metro closes today. But today we have an opportunity to hear from our citizens about the things that our commissioners might carry forward, both to that joint impact JPAC meeting and future Metro meetings on this project. Metro plans to adopt the preferred strategy sometime in December. And that closes my presentation. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chandler. Yes, this is open for public comment. Commissioner Savas.
I just want to just add a little bit of background. I think as Mr. Chandler has laid out early on, that this is a result of some 2009 legislation that funded the joint transportation projects in the area. And two of those projects, one was the jug handle on Highway 213 that was completed, and the project that is underway currently is the Sunrise project. I think it's important to note that, we are, I think, somewhat boxed in that we have to, our only option at this point is to try to take the recommendations and the policies that drive this forward in a way that protects those interests that Dan laid out, and not at the expense of the highway system. The irony here is that the highway system, or the contribution to CO2 based on congestion, and the constricted highway system that I feel hasn't really been addressed from a capacity standpoint, has actually contributed to the CO2 contribution. So the approach, the previous approach has been, we're not going to build any more highways. And as the region grows and grows and grows, that policy has actually resulted in a higher output of CO2, which is what this legislation is all about, to try to reduce. So it would seem intuitive and logical that we would try to address that very thing, because that is probably, in my opinion, my background in air quality, trying to meet air quality in the automotive side of things, and this is what this addresses. My experience and background has been that cars that are moving versus cars that are stopped produce far less CO2 if they're moving effectively. The systems are operating. They're at their most peak efficiency when the vehicle's moving, preferably 40 miles an hour and over. However, you make them stop and you make them idle, they put out far more CO2. There's productivity loss. There's businesses that may or may not move here because of the congestion. We've just neglected the highway system, I think. And I think it's important to really get that back on track, because that is probably the most viable way of actually meeting a CO2 reduction. Surefire, you're not counting on behavior changes. You're not counting on people using a sidewalk or using a bike lane or using transit, though those are important things that we got to provide. But the fact that the greatest benefit, in my opinion, is by solving this one problem. And you don't really, I'm going to be careful when I say solve, because you never solve congestion, but I think managing it effectively and responsibly is really the approach here. So as we go forward in the next month or two, up until December when this is adopted, it's up to us to try to influence a policy language that gets us that result in a responsible way, in meeting compliance that we have no control over. For people that don't like the legislation or don't like that, I think you need to take that and talk to your state legislators at that level. But we don't have the choice of saying the law is the law or not, or creating the law. It's about how we work within it. So I have more comments, but I'm going to leave that as part of my comments in the introduction of this.
Chair Ludlow?
Yes, Martha.
Yes. So I've been listening here very diligently, and I appreciate Mr. Chandler's report, and I also want to concur with Commissioner Savas's assessment. As we've been representing the county at both the MPAC and JPAC table, I know that Commissioner Savas and I have very diligently brought forward this message that we, number one, need to have flexibility. Number two, we really don't want to see language that would appear to take dollars away from road expansion and maintenance in any kind of process or document that's put forward. That's the fear, is that as much as we understand some of the highly urban areas need transit or need rail or whatever else they need, we have different needs and concerns because of the size and scope of our county. And so we want to make sure that we are at that table. And again, the third piece that as we study different transit modalities, we're finding out that those smaller transit systems, like a Canby system, Sandy system, the Wilsonville system are actually more nimble, are able to really provide services to citizens in a more timely manner and a more flexible manner, and actually do integrate well with the larger urban system that TriMet seems to operate. So based on those three principles, we will be working on language that reflects that. So we can point to it when funding, notions appear, that indeed we can make sure we have what we need for road expansion and flexibility. And I appreciate what Commissioner Savas says because he did remind people this is a legislative mandate that Metro as the county, or as the regional government, was required to move forward with something. And our job, there isn't necessarily any opportunity to just say no, but there is an opportunity is to reframe the discussion so we get what we need and that we are climate smart in an appropriate way for our area. So thank you for that, and we will continue to work diligently on those committees together.
Thank you, Martha. Commissioner Smith.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I want to be very clear in my position on this. I don't like this at all. This is a freight train running over the top of us, and we have no say in what we do. The only thing we can do is make it a little less painful on a scale from 10 to maybe a 9.5. It doesn't matter what we do here in Oregon. Everybody, we could park our cars, we could all walk and ride bicycles. What they're doing in other countries flows from west to the east and hits our coastline. And I'll use China as an example. So whereas the state of Oregon is very small and it's 3.8 million people, most of them reside in the Portland and Willamette Valley, I feel this is crippling to us. Now, yes, this was a legislative mandate, but I feel a lot of the responsibility is on Metro and the guidelines that have come up in order to implement this law and the administrative rules used in doing so. Metro could have gone other ways with this. Metro could have done maybe some lesser harsh mandates on this, but they chose not to. So my whole opinion in this is it's a bunch of hooey, and the next thing that we're going to get in is once the climate smart's implemented, they're going to tax us on it. So just wait for that to come down the road. And I appreciate your comments on this. I will take diligent notes, and if I can vote no on this, I certainly will. Thank you.
Chair Ludlow?
Commissioner
Chair
Schrader?
Ludlow?
Yes.
Yes, I'd like to respectfully respond to Commissioner Smith. None of us is particularly fond of Metro. I certainly, myself, don't go down that road at all. However, we are in a position where we can change the policy. And to me, just saying, well, no, isn't going to be particularly helpful towards that end. If we want to remain at a table and make sure that the county doesn't get bludgeoned by policies that don't fit our needs. So I'd like to make that perfectly clear. As Chair Ludlow often says, if you're not at the table eating lunch, you are the lunch. And for good or for ill, that is the situation we are in. So we can say not just no, but hell no, but that isn't really going to get us what we need or change the policy to fit what the county needs.
Commissioner Smith.
Well, what I'm going to say to that is, in all my legislative experience and my observations, you can't take a bill that's 100% bad, change it 20%, have an 80% bad bill and think you're good and you're better off. It just doesn't happen that way. Martha, we don't need to argue this. I know that you think being at the table with Metro, an agency who does not care about Clackamas County, doesn't value its citizens' input, is somehow a good deal. It's like standing next to the guillotine, and instead of being in the first position, you move back to number 10 in the row. I respectfully disagree with that. I've made my statements, and so I'm sticking with it.
Chair Ludlow, can I respond to that?
Okay, now remember why we're here today, to gather the
Yes, I
public
know.
input. Commissioners, before I give it back to you, Commissioner Savas.
I just want to, I thought I heard Commissioner Schrader indicate that we need, not that we're advocating or we say we ought to come in last place or we ought to put ourselves in a vulnerable position. I think I heard just the opposite. We need to place ourselves in the strongest position. And if we are not smart about how we approach this and how we make sure that our interests are protected and we're actually meeting the regulation, which I think could be a benefit, because I think we can leverage to say that the largest benefit and the largest gain advancing to CO2 reduction is building, perhaps these highways that were caused by, frankly, I feel a faulted policy. This is really the solution, and I think that we need to make that case, and I think we need to make it and be very smart about how we do that. So I took Commissioner Schrader's comments as trying to make the best out of this and to do it in a constructive way, and not that we are going to somehow succumb to this at all. I didn't take her message that way at all.
No, thank you, Commissioner Savas, for that, Chair. I just want to add that to me this is a very important mechanism whereby we can leverage dollars for even potentially the second phase of the Sunrise Corridor, because we are in a position now where we should be pushing back and pushing back hard, and letting any kind of a regional consortium or governance structure know that we are important and we will not be silent. Thank you.
Well, pursuant to trying to say less than any other commissioner, I will say, Metro probably should have stuck with garbage in the zoo. Not necessarily in that order. I don't think, and I appreciate the spirit of conciliation and bargaining. We're not going to make a bit of difference with what Metro intends to do and send to the legislature as their fix. I have grave concerns on what is mandatory versus supposedly it's all voluntary. It can quickly convert itself when it gets to Salem. I also have grave concerns about the cost. The middle-of-the-road projection for this climate smart, I like to film this comment better, is $265 million a year. You take 1 year of climate smart and we can fix I-205. Our biggest problem in this county, the biggest problem in this region, and an interstate problem. Time is money, ladies and gentlemen, and as they, and I think the theys are well identified, continue to force you off the road, they're affecting your productivity. I mean, gross domestic product is affected, services, deliveries, trucking, everybody is affected. 600 more miles of walking paths and bicycle trails? Really? Day before yesterday when it was raining like a cow, you know what? Did you see people out there using those? This is a temporary fix. It ain't L.A., and yet we continue. I remember when the governor, let's see, he's come back, and this is during his first term, said, read my lips, no new freeways. He's kept his word. Has it done us any good? No. We're pushing people away from their productivity in automobiles. We often go to these meetings during the day, and there's an august group of elected officials and Metro officials, et cetera, and you look around the room and you say, if you rode your bike today or took light rail, would you get anything done? You've got to go to these meetings. You've got to be on time. We are the elite, and the plebeians, they must take mass transit. It's crazy, and I'm not so enthralled with trying to affect change with Metro. I think that's been tried a bunch of times, and it's failed miserably. And some of the people in this room have been involved in that. So anyway, we will now get into and by the way, Bike and Ped, $2 billion? Really? So I will start calling people forward in twos, and because of the waning time, try to keep it to 3 minutes, will you please? Mr. Les Poole, Miss Mariana Moore. Familiar faces.
I will keep it brief. For probably a year and a half, off and on, I've reiterated one thing over and over, and that is we have a regional government that is spending an inordinate amount of money and generating very mediocre results. That happens when any entity gets so big that serving itself and serving its political agenda becomes job one. That happened to IBM. It doesn't just happen with the government. If you look at the level of mission creep and the expansion of Metro's budget and the lack of accountability for that over time, it's incredible. It is incredible. We have an entity that has a very bad track record, which I couldn't document in 3 minutes, but I'll be happy to volunteer to submit a report to the county, which of course will be very factual and easy to read. It is not rocket science to go back and say to yourselves, how is it that a tight, small, powerful entity of elected officials can be given this kind of authority over the entire region? The law that was passed by the legislature, the 2009 legislature that passed a lot of questionable laws in a collapsed economy, that legislature authorized this, and I agree with Tootie 100% that Metro is now interpreting that law in a manner that's convenient for them. And in the presentation earlier, we saw a map, one of the typical planning maps one sees, that showed the active transportation corridors. But of course, did that map have any streets on it? Did you see any of the roads that are going to be sacrificed? These vague maps and methodology used by Metro, it's so troubling. And let me conclude by asking one question. Has the word TriMet been mentioned anywhere in this? Could we get a clear definition from someone in the staff or one of the commissioners as to what transit is? Because, you know, in 2011 they started this thing and nobody knew about it except a few of us. Now there's a survey you can take online at the last minute if you go to Oregon Metro. But the bottom line is that this is a flawed process by a flawed organization that is going to spend a fortune and achieve just incredibly mediocre results. So let's please do anything we can to send them a message that we need flexibility, and flexibility is another word for local control. Thank you for your time.
Mariana?
Yeah, Mariana Moore, Gladstone. I just wanted to kind of go back to this climate change thing that they're promoting, and I was born in January of 35. 1934 and 1935 were terrible climate years. I think they've still got the record for the coldest and the hottest back there. We haven't got global warming here. It's very minimal in Oregon especially. And of course, the people that are promoting this also promote letting the forest fires burn and some of these other things that do pollute the air. Normal CO2 is what makes the grass grow. I mean, this is such a crazy premise that they're doing this on. I just, wanted to point that out, that global warming is not even factual. They just had the man on TV like yesterday, one of them that started the Weather Channel, and the 1957 report that had come out. Well, the guy that put that out rejected it later. and then he died, so nobody pays any attention to the fact that in 1957 we were talking about all this global warming and how we had to change everything in our lives to take care of this. And, you know, we had George Taylor was the Oregon climatologist, and he was talking about the fallacy of this. So the governor got rid of him. I mean, the people that are promoting this are not even using the facts. And I'd just like to say that, you know, all of this building light rail, the energy that was taken up to build those tracks, to build the trains, all these things, they won't be made up in years for what they've cost us. In global warming, if that's what you think is happening, it doesn't seem to actually be factual. There's been hardly any change in Oregon, and maybe in other places. And of course, now we've got the volcano overflowing in Hawaii, and we've got huge forest fires and other things that bring up the bad gases much more than what we're seeing from our vehicles. And like Paul says, if we could just keep the vehicles moving, we wouldn't, and the cars are changed. It's not a big thing to have cars moving on the road, and having this new light rail and all of these things that are going to hold up the traffic, and all that they've already spent in tearing up Oatfield Road and the area around there is just terrible. I hope everybody goes and looks at it and takes notes of what is going on when TriMet comes to your area. Thank you.
Commissioner Savas?
Well, there's one thing I mentioned earlier that for fewer years I've been in the air quality aspects, emissions as it relates to cars and so forth. So I've been in that industry. And over the years, I think a lot of us have been puzzled sometimes about the solutions that come down that are mandated. And, you know, you look back, you drill down, you realize that sometimes, you know, politicians are really making these policies, and it's really not engineering, science, and technologies that they're not listening to that group very often. So over the evolution of emission controls and so forth to control air quality, we have made, you think, the engineering and the technology, you know, the people in the trade doing this have been successful, largely successful. You look at what the output is today, we have made huge advances. Cars are getting better fuel economy. But the problem we run into often is we have people that aren't using the science, are not using the technology. They're politicians, and some politicians are chemists and scientists, and they're probably qualified to at least opine, but they're rare. Unfortunately, it's the people that are making policy that don't understand the technology that are making some of these conclusions. So, you know, we don't, or we as politicians in general, we don't get it right often. And when I was, I think, in the 3rd grade, we were told that global cooling was taking effect, and that the polar ice caps were going to cover all of Washington and Oregon and Northern California, and we really had to worry about our environment. Environmentalism kind of really took off. So granted, the air quality is far better than it's ever been. This region has not been out of compliance for a long time. CO2, by the way, is not a toxic. It's a natural occurring chemical. It's the toxics, it's the nitrogens of oxide, it's the CO, it's the hydrocarbons that are what's dangerous. And cars stopping, accelerating, put out far higher toxics than cars that are moving at a steady speed.
I want to definitely get to the people who have been waiting a long time here. Chuck Weiss and John Lee. What's that? Gordon's last, yeah.
Is he next?
Yeah.
Then we go first and you, then
Okay,
Gordon.
all right.
Good afternoon, Mr. Chair and Commissioners. My name is John Lee, Jr., and I'm the chairman of the Clackamas County Republican Party and reside in Boring. I will let others, like Gordon Fuchs, etc., speak to the science of global warming, although I am a physicist. I would like to encourage you to notify Metro that Clackamas County does not support the ill-advised Metro Climate Plan and pass a resolution as such supporting appropriate language pertaining to keeping our roads and not dealing with mass transit. We are here today to ask the board three things. Be bold, be decisive, and be collaborative. I had not seen the letter before I came in today, and I was happy to see that all 5 signatures were on that letter. By being bold, take on this issue for your constituents and for Clackamas. Be decisive. Make a decision. Take a vote. Be collaborative. Please, please work together. This is not a partisan issue. It is about local control. As Jefferson so well stated, government that is closest to the people is the most effective, responsible, and accountable. The best government is that which governs least. Please put Metro on notice that you will do what is best for Clackamas and that you do not support the Metro Climate Plan and that you do not intend to implement it in Clackamas. Since I have a few more moments, I'd also like to discuss, I think, a very important issue that's going to come before us soon, road maintenance. Again, we ask that you be bold, decisive, and collaborative. Please consider ideas that are not common. As you know, they've started a test concerning road mileage. We have concerns in the Republican Party with that. It is often said that the amount of taxes received for gas tax has been reduced due to fuel efficiency. We could argue that point, but today, let's assume it's true. If so, then electric and hybrid vehicles would be a great contributor to this problem. An electric vehicle or a natural gas vehicle, as far as I'm concerned, probably does the same road damage as a gas-powered vehicle, but they're not paying their fair share. Isn't it time, if we can't make a mileage technique work, isn't it time to look and say a vehicle registration fee based on the type of vehicle and its ability, be it electric, hybrid, or gas? We want to support a positive view and methodology for road maintenance. Please consider such out-of-the-box, bold, decisive, and collaborative ideas. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Yes, sir.
Thank you, Chair Ludlow. I came here today to speak about the climate action plan by Metro as well. I'm asking you to do everything within your power as commissioners to reject this, not sign on to 80% of it. I'm fully with Tootie on this, and I'm saying this because you are being lied to by Metro, by the Oregon Climate Change Research Institute, and by the Governor's Office concerning everything about Oregon's climate and the world climate and CO2 emissions themselves. We've been told by these people that Oregon's climate is warming when in fact the record shows that it's cooling. We have been told that the snowpack is declining due to CO2 emissions when in fact the record has been static for over 100 years, and researchers at the University of Washington have confirmed this. We have been told severe weather is increasing in our region. It is not increasing, it is actually decreased. And the Oregon Climate Change Research Institute in Corvallis has lied to the Oregon Health Authority last September in a report that they issued, stating that heat waves are becoming more common to our region when in fact they are not. I looked at the climate records myself, so did Mark Albright, who is a retired climatologist for Washington State, and found the heat waves are not becoming more common to the region. When I confronted the OCCRI with this information, they refused to correct the record, and they refused to correct it today. They continue to lie about the climate, and they were installed by Governor Kulongoski as supposedly the only authority to look at in terms of the climate record itself. And anything else from anybody else is considered nonsense. That's pretty much been their attitude, even though the real records show otherwise. I want to address, just for a minute, something about these frivolous carbon reduction plans of theirs, which is contained in a lot of their reports. According to them, we have to reduce CO2 emissions to 350 parts per million by volume. What does that mean? Oregon emits 68 million metric tons of CO2 per year, Compare that to the global emissions of 33 billion. We are only emitting 0.2% of the global total. That's if you wiped out every single carbon emission. You'd have to shut everything down. If you did this in all 50 states, it would be about a 33% reduction in the growth of CO2, not actually reversing it. In order to get it back to these frivolous, non-scientific, arbitrarily derived numbers these people have been using, you'd have to cut global emissions by 65%, and that's using a simple carbon model, which could verify all of this. It's absolute nonsense. It's been based upon fraud. You're being defrauded by all of these people when they tell you the climate is changing in a way that it's not, and they refuse to accept what's actually in the real climate record, and they continue to move forward with these dangerous, idiotic plans which will accomplish nothing. The only thing that I can see that they're going to do is steal people's money, and you're right, once this is implemented, the taxes will follow. So please, do everything in your power to reject this. It is not based on sound science, it is based upon fraud. Thank you.
Thank you.
And by the way, just for the record, I am a meteorologist. I practiced for over 25 and 30 years. I've got my academic credentials from Oregon State University. I'm ashamed of them because OCCRI comes from there. Everything that was taught in atmospheric science in the 1970s concerning these greenhouse gases and CO2 was set aside, never disproven, but supplanted with failed climate models. And that's the only thing these people have to hang their hats on. Failed modeling, which said the temperatures would continue to go up as CO2 went up. The CO2 has gone up, but the temperature stabilized and has been stable globally for over 18 years now, and counting. They have no plausible explanation for this that's scientific.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Appreciate you coming today.
But that was Chuck Weiss.
Yes.
He didn't state his name. I was just.
Oh, I thought he did. That was Chuck Weiss, ladies and gentlemen. And last but certainly not least is a man who really knows the climate, probably better than, in my opinion, than a lot of people. I've heard him speak many times, Dr. Gordon Fuchs. Now, Gordon, you just set a record. See, nobody gets applause before you speak. It's, but that, yeah, a lot of us have.
Hello, Chairman Ludlow, Commissioners. My name is Dr. Gordon Folks, and it's pronounced Folks.
Sorry.
Let's get that right first. I'm a PhD astrophysicist, and I'm here as a scientist, not so much as a citizen. If I were here as a citizen, I might talk about all the costs involved. I have no conflicts of interest. I don't work for big climate, and I don't work for big oil, among others. Metro, in terms of addressing them, they ignore all input, so that's not really an option at all. Their climate smart plan has nothing to do with climate, and it has nothing to do with being smart, but you know that already. As to greenhouse gases, as to increasing them or decreasing them, I don't know if you noticed, but last night the greenhouse gases in Clackamas County increased magnificently. We had rain, and rain, water vapor is the main greenhouse gas. It goes up and goes down on its own timetable. You're not going to have any effect on that, whatever, and yet it's the main driver of that portion of climate. There are other aspects of climate that are as important or more important than that, notably the hydrological cycle, and that is something that Chuck Weiss talks about quite a bit. Well, I've looked through much of the Metro material. It has no scientific basis whatever. It's really a transportation plan. So maybe you like light rail, maybe you like buses, maybe you like something else. Go with that plan or don't go with it based on its transportation aspects. They talk about in the report a relative climate benefit. And of course, relative is incredible because the difference between nothing and nothing really isn't relative. It does nothing on temperature at all, but it has considerable effect. Carbon dioxide has considerable effect on global, what we call global greening. In other words, the world gets greener as you get more carbon dioxide in the atmosphere. And since you can't do anything about it here locally with carbon dioxide, you ought to throw it all back to Metro and say it's not going to work. What about one aspect they talk about here that you haven't mentioned? You've concentrated on transportation. There's also their low carbon fuel standard. And since I'm an astrophysicist and I know James Hansen a little bit, who's an astrophysicist, we've talked about this, and he's from Iowa. I thought he would support ethanol in fuel, but indeed, he knows it's fraud. I know it's fraud. And if you're worried about carbon dioxide, you don't put ethanol in the fuel. What about decarbonizing? We like this rhetoric, at least, even if it isn't applicable to climate. You should realize that we've been decarbonizing since about 1800. And it wasn't because in 1860 Abraham Lincoln was elected and put forth these low-carbon fuel standards. It's because technology advanced. We did in the early 1800s what I do today. We heated with wood, and that really puts more carbon dioxide into the atmosphere than any other technology. Then we progressed to coal, and even though coal is essentially pure carbon, it puts less carbon dioxide into the atmosphere per BTU generated. Then we went to oil. Then we go to natural gas, which is really quite a low-carbon fuel. And then eventually we will go to nuclear. But of course, the environmentalists don't want nuclear, so they try windmills and whatever, which are counterproductive also. In other words, it's driven by technology. Well, what about consensus? Am I a minority of one in expressing this opinion to you? Well, you've seen other scientists, two of them who sat here just a few minutes ago. But what about the consensus of 50 professors, Pacific Northwest professors, who 10 years ago put out this consensus statement saying that we've seen rising temperatures due to carbon dioxide, and the temperatures are slated to go up, according to them, 1 degree Fahrenheit per decade. Well, what happened? Well, these guys got a lot of money. The institutions got about $1 billion, so it was successful with that ploy. But the temperatures actually went down in the Pacific Northwest over the last 10 years by 1 degree Fahrenheit. They got it absolutely wrong. More recently, they've still been arguing this. The professor at Oregon State University, Phil Mote, says that all of the warming that we observed during the 20th century, and we did observe a little, was due to carbon dioxide. Well, one of his pals in this consensus statement came out and said, we do not see a human hand in the warming of the 20th century. These are still alarmists. They still say that eventually it'll show up. But it's obviously, if it does, it'll be much more minor than they thought. And then this was picked up, and these guys were really arguing amongst themselves. And Cliff Mass, who's a well-known professor at the University of Washington, said, hey, Mantua has it right. Mote doesn't know what he's talking about. That's quite magnificent to see them fighting amongst themselves, and we say, we told you all along. Well, I could go on and on this. Let me tell you, though, don't be a party to fraud. Say no to the climate nonsense. Let me step back one sentence as a citizen. If you really have these billions of dollars to spend, spend it on your fellow man. Don't spend it on windmills. Thank you.
Yes. I think the commissioner just said, don't spend your money on tilting windmills. But, thank you, Dr. Gordon.
Thank you.
Folks.
Yes.
Okay, thank you very much. All right, ladies and gentlemen, just to remind you, the purpose of this discussion item was to allow the public to provide feedback and perspective to the Board of Commissioners on this issue. The Commission can then use the feedback when providing their own input to Metro, which will be continuous. So there will be no action from the board at this time. So Commissioner Savas.
Yeah. In closing, I just want to thank the staff and the board for accommodating my request to bring this forward and to do some of the research and background in the letter, and we got consensus on the letter to put out. It's hard to make a case and to, in a large regional setting, and I applaud that we're trying to be collaborative, but at the same token I don't know we have an option, really an option of being effective at saying no and having this stop. Unfortunately, that's I think really at the legislative level. So unless the law changes at the legislative level, can we have an effect as far as saying we can't implement this in Clackamas County because it's destined to be law. Now, if there's a legal opinion from our legal counsel that we indeed have that option, maybe we can pursue that. But I hope that I can continue to get some staff support to try to get enough of the details to use at November 7th and the subsequent meetings following to make a good case and argue as to how and why we feel it ought to be drafted in a way that highway systems aren't compromised and our transportation needs aren't compromised. So with that, I wish we would have had the work session and had a little bit more material in the packet for those of the people that are listening or watching that could have looked that up, but perhaps we'll get to that next week. But I would like to get something on the website on some of the research that we've done. I think it'd be very informative for people to know and see some of this traffic studies and reports. What is it? We're the 24th largest metropolitan area in the country, but yet I think we had reports say we're the 6th or 9th worst in congestion, traffic congestion, and there's a CO2 contribution that relates to that. It seems to me that we were managing our our highway system properly, that maybe we'd be the 24th worst in congestion, or at least be in the ballpark with other regions. But some of those other regions that are not number 9 or 10 or 11 or number 1 or 2 are probably a lot more prosperous than we are. So I can't say that that's for certain, but I think we ought to get ourselves in step with some of the other areas as it relates to traffic flow and commerce.
Commissioner Smith.
I would just like to remind the folks, there are no transportation dollars if we adopt this package. That's a ruse. And these costs that are outlined are estimates. And you know how government estimates are. They go up and up and up. I don't see Metro coming and saying to Clackamas County, we're going to build you the Sunrise Corridor. We're going to keep you out of congestion. We're going to do this for you. As a matter of fact, the opposite is true. What they're going to do is they're going to put more light rail in that goes to nowhere. And they're going to continue not with their buses, not delivering their passengers on time, increasing their fees one after another because they're sustainably not financial. And so I take exception to saying that we can't oppose this. Of course we can oppose overbearing government. What is wrong with people to accept the status quo? I take great exception that a fellow elected says, oh, we have to accept this because it's what they want to do. There is no carrot offered to Clackamas County to do this. And I'll use another analogy. You're taking your first place at the guillotine line and you're putting yourself in the number 10 guillotine line, and folks, it's not going to make a difference. And I will stand opposed to this. And I will speak out time and time against this hugely failed policy that is a fraud perpetuated on the citizens of this state.
Chair?
Yes, Commissioner Schrader.
As I said, I've been listening very, very closely to the conversation. Philosophically, I agree with folks. I'm not particularly interested in Metro rolling over our county. Evidently, though, I'm hearing that my style and how I handle and negotiate these kinds of conversations doesn't seem to fit what the board wants to do. So I would like to say, if Commissioner Smith would like to replace me on NPAC, I'd be glad to have her do so.
You're not getting out of that yet.
Thank you, Martha, thank you for the generous offer.
No, I'm just saying that, you know, if my style and how I negotiate and how I stick up for the county doesn't fit what the county needs, then maybe that's something that needs to be looked at. As you know, I go in and collaborate and push to get for everything we need and everything we want, but I don't want that to be misconstrued from my perspective and from Commissioner Savis's perspective that somehow we are thinking that Metro is God's gift to government, because we are not. What we are trying to do is to negotiate, understanding what we're dealing with, but if we need a different style of negotiation, I am more than willing to entertain that. So go fight, win.
All right, Commissioner Savis.
Well, I think it was misconstrued. I think saying that we want change and everyone signing on to this to say we need to make an impact and not accept is not accept. So I don't see how Commissioner Smith somehow chose to grandstand and throw me under the bus.
Oh,
but
my goodness gracious.
Paul, get off your high horse.
You just said my fellow saying accept. I don't think this letter says accept. I don't think the approach. So if you want to change this, if I may finish, if you want to change this, do we have a different strategy?
Yeah.
You want to go to the legislature? I mean, what is? Are we in agreement with the letter and the contents and the action, or are we not? We are the representatives. The goal of this was to have a work session. There is no work session. The goal is to have the material ready to go. As of yet, hopefully we'll have that next week. We're looking for direction. Commissioner Schrader and I are looking for direction.
Well, I have
the
been
goal here
very
is,
vocal.
okay, may I finish? So the question is the contents of the letter and the strategy implied within the way we want to go, or do you have a different suggestion?
Mr. Savas, we've had many, many work sessions that are on tape. I have repeatedly said the same things that I have said here today, that I am opposed to this. I do not think climate-smart strategies work. I think it's a fraud invented by government out of thin air to take control of whatever government's trying to take control of. You do what you want with your little letter to JPAC, MTAC, or Metro, because it's not going to do us any good. I signed it in agreement with all the commissioners. If Martha wants to go, if you want to go, try to negotiate with these people. You come back and you tell me how successful you are in your negotiations for Clackamas County.
Well, I'm not sure will we be successful, Commissioner Smith. What I'm asking is what is your suggestion?
We're going to let this go. You know, I want to mention, Paul, that we have had study sessions on this. I mean, here's my accumulation of the study sessions we've had on this, as well as going to parties where Metro was speaking and talking this up, and they drove their single-occupied vehicles to get there. But the point of the matter is we're up to date on this. Mr. Chandler has kept us up to date on this, and let me remind everybody from this letter that we sent this week what it says. Similar to what we've said today and other people, we are concerned that the preferred strategy will become a filter through which more regional flex funds and MTEP money is allocated to non-road projects or to support projects in particular areas. We want to be sure that this is not the case, and that the region retains its ability to invest in highway capacity. Moreover, since the preferred strategy and the RTP itself were based on local transportation systems plan, it is important that the region remain committed to the implementation of those local, I emphasize, plans. Our local plans, our transportation systems plan, was sent to Metro, and they put all the plans from the region together and call it the Regional Transportation Plan. The Regional Transportation Plan has funding that is necessary to achieve those. A lot of that funding is either not there or not achievable. So the point of the matter is this is another added cost to our citizens, to our drivers, and it continues to focus on multimodal transportation instead of the automobile, our service vehicles, our trucks, our transportation systems that we need out there. Commissioner Savas.
So my question is, Chair, do you support this strategy? It's not just a letter, it's a strategy. What's implied here is that this is what we argue for. Is that what you're suggesting we continue to do? Because not only you're directing us, but staff's being directed as well at the technical committees.
I don't think we've ever withdrawn anything here today, Mr. Savas. I'm simply voicing my opinion, and it's like drugs. Just say no. What are they going to do to us if we say no? We think the whole thing's foolhardy.
I just want to get the clarification because there's nothing in the letter that says we accept the status quo, and there's no one here suggesting we accept the status quo. The implied strategy in the letter is to argue for everything you just outlined.
I don't think I said status quo anytime.
I was talking about Commissioner Smith's comments.
Well, I'm just going to finish with saying one thing, and that is, just because I have a difference of opinion of my other commissioners does not mean I should be discounted or somehow belittled in this conversation because I disagree with two of my commissioners. I think it's a good, valuable discussion, and I think I happen to represent, as far as I know, an overwhelming majority of the people in Clackamas County with my opinion. So just because I disagree with the people who are trying to do the work for the county with Metro doesn't mean I'm not going to try to stand and push to get everything we get. It's just I think we're going to fail because we cannot stop the bus running over the top of us.
But Chair Ludlow?
Yes.
Chair?
Yes, Commissioner Schrader?
Chair, I'm just going to say one last thing. To me, this is just, I do agree with Commissioner Savas. I think this is just about strategy. And at the last MPAC meeting, I pushed back very hard, and I had people coming up to me saying that we got your message. You're very diplomatic in how you deliver your message, but we understand what you're pushing back with. Now, to be perfectly honest, I I've been really working very hard on rural economic development strategies, not at the local level, the state level, and the federal level. And my point is, I really truly believe this. If Commissioner Smith wants to go to the table and deliver the message, I'm really okay with that. I've got plenty to do on my plate, and I do it in Oregon, and obviously I do it when I'm thousands of miles away. I'm always doing it. So think about it, and perhaps we should talk about that at some point.
I want to point out that this commission gives, in essence, instructions to people serving on other boards and commissions. Right. And Martha and Paul have been very good about delivering the board's message, not their individual ones, and usually they agree with those. But they've been very good about that. Martha has been done a very good job down there, so has Paul on JPAC. But again, the net effect is the question. Will this effect change? Sure, I got my doubts. I'm not a negative person. I'm a very positive person. But this thing is pretty much done. They're going to sign it, adopt it in December, and go forward. The emphasis in the letter drafted by our Strategic Policy Administrator, Dan Chandler, is that we think that there's some need for flexibility and some change. We'll simply see how well we do with either diplomatic responses or the just say no kind of an idea. So this is not the last correspondence we'll give Metro. We've appreciated everybody's input today, and that will help formulate our decisions and our pathway in the near future. I want to thank everybody that came forward on this issue. Now, it is time for the consent agenda. I'll ask the clerk to read the consent agenda by title.
Okay, the consent agenda. Under Health, Housing, and Human Services, approval of a construction contract change order with T.S. Gray Construction for the rehabilitation of the historic Francis Ermitinger House project in Oregon City. Hope I said that right.
Don't worry about it.
Under the Department of Emergency Management, approval of an intergovernmental agreement with the Regional Disaster Preparedness Organization to establish an intergovernmental organization to strengthen the region's disaster preparedness, response, and recover capabilities. Under elected officials, approval of previous business meeting minutes. And under the Development Agency, approval of a contract with Harper, Huff, Peterson, Regelis, Inc., for consulting services for engineering, design, and construction plans for the Audie Street Realignment Project. And that concludes the consent agenda.
And the commissioners wish to remove any of the items?
No.
I'll ask for a motion.
I move we approve the consent agenda.
Oh, go ahead. Thank you, Commissioner Schrader. The motion made by Commissioner Smith, seconded by Commissioner Schrader. Any further discussion? I'll ask the clerk to call the poll.
Commissioner Schrader?
Aye.
Commissioner Smith?
Aye.
Commissioner Savas?
Aye.
Chair Ludlow?
Aye, passes 4-0. And now for the most exciting time of the day, it's the County Administrator Update.
So given the lunch hours upon us, I'm going to postpone my remarks.
Oh, you're trying to set a precedent here, I bet you. I don't know if we're going to go for it. So, look, they're all saying, yeah, I'm down. All right, so we'll start with Commissioner Schrader.
Well, thank you all. As Chair Ludlow mentioned, I am in England once again. I don't mind sharing the reason why. Last week, my daughter was in the hospital hemorrhaging with complications from her pregnancy. And it was a pretty dire situation, and her sister was out. I couldn't get away at that point, but as soon as I could arrange to attend meetings electronically and get everything together, I am out here with her. She's on bed rest, and I will be coming home probably within the next 5 to 6 days. And in the interim, I want to assure everyone, as with my colleagues and my constituents, I bless technology. I have all the emails. I read everything that I need to know, and I am making a big effort to make sure that even though I'm not physically there, I am still heart and soul with Clackamas County. And thank everybody. And I'm going to ask you to please pray for this. It's just been a very, very difficult time. We're still not out of the woods. but I would sure like to have that next little girl grandchild. So thanks.
Thank you, Martha. Commissioner Smith.
I'm going to be very brief as well. I'm just going to announce that the 36 pit fire closed on Wednesday of this week. That's totally extinguished thanks to our rain. However, other problems have come up, which we'll talk about next week. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Schrader. She'd had enough of us, I guess. Commissioner Savas.
Well, I'm going to be brief as well. I just want to just restate what I said earlier, is that through the evolution of watching politicians make policy as it relates to air quality, I've seen a lot of mistakes and a lot of errors and a lot of presumptions that never came to fruition, and millions and millions of dollars have been wasted. So, our choices here, again, I think, are do the best we can at the local level, and I think that really the solution, frankly, is if we don't get where we need to go, it's a legislative fix, because it's the lawmakers that made the law that we're constrained with. And I think, and I just want to make sure that the message, my point is make sure that the message that we got and the strategy we have is the one that you want us to represent. And I think I got that message. So thanks for the support with the letter and the strategy, and I'll do the best I can.
I won't go over my week. It's been particularly busy, a lot of regional meetings and a meeting with all the mayors of Clackamas County yesterday, which I try to do every quarter. I will have Mary put up on the screen the FYI information about our last town hall meeting this calendar year. And it will be the Happy Valley Business Alliance hosting this. And it'll be at the Happy Valley City Hall, 16,000 Southeast Misty Drive in Happy Valley. The time will be 7 to 8:30 p.m. But I thought it worthy also to close with this, handed to us in advance of his testimony by one of the testifiers, the veteran. It is the veteran, not the reporter, who has given us freedom of the press. It is the veteran, not the poet, who has given us freedom of speech. It is the veteran, not the campus organizer, who has given us freedom to demonstrate. It is the veteran who salutes the flag and serves beneath the flag and whose coffin is draped by the flag, who has given the protester the freedom to burn the flag. Ladies and gentlemen, yes, Mac Woods. Thank you, everybody, for coming today and or watching. And ladies and gentlemen, there being no further business before this commission, this meeting is adjourned.